Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish Podcast. On today's episode, we've got Rebuilt's new Executive Director, Bill Baird. Now, Bill is no stranger to Rebuilt. He has been here for the long haul, and I'm excited for you to get to know him. Number one, because he was my coach when I was in parish coaching, and number two, because he's got such incredible faith, and number three, because he's got such diverse experience from the business world to working in the diocese and to coaching parishes all over the country. See you inside the episode. Well, hey there, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Melissa, thank you for having me. I'm grateful for this opportunity and I look forward to our conversation.
Well, this is exciting because you've been a part of Rebuilt for a long time. And I think we have to share this before we go any farther, that our listeners know that I was part of a Rebuilt parish, one of the first parishes to be coached starting back in 2020. And here's the fun thing, Bill was my coach. So this is full circle right here.
That's exactly right. And the opportunity to coach you and Father Tom at the time, and then Father Scott after Father Tom moved on, was a tremendous opportunity for me. And my first opportunity to coach in the Rebuilt model, which was exciting as well.
So this is fun. Now, Bill, you have been coaching for a long time and you've been in the business world and the Catholic world. Can you share a little bit about your background and your involvement with Rebuilt?
Absolutely, Melissa. The background is I spent 25 years in the investment business with various companies like Legg Mason, Alex Brown, and Alex Brown's successor companies, then Brown Advisory. Then I got the unique opportunity to be recruited by a good friend, Bill McCarthy, who was executive director of Catholic Charities and on our board now at Rebuilt. He recruited me to be the CFO of the Archdiocese of Baltimore back in 2010. From there, about 8 years in that seat, I got the call to go into parish coaching, parish renewal. And the real call was that specifically the Catholic Church is only going to be renewed on the ground, in the parishes, in their communities from the ground up. And the second thing is that our pastors really need people that want to come alongside of them and accompany them in their work to create disciples, but also to build up the communities that they're in. So I feel like God created this opportunity for me through all the experience I've had in my career. And here I sit as an executive director of Rebuilt Parish, as brand spanking new, but at the same time, I feel like the Holy Spirit and God has worked in my life for a long time. And that experience has been great. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I started this whole journey in Rebuilt really as a parishioner at Nativity, back in 2005 when Mary, the kids, and I all moved back from California and joined this Church of the Nativity when we moved back to our hometown of Baltimore and Timonium. And that has been the journey for a lot of us on our team and a lot of our ministers, that it starts first and foremost with our work in the parish.
Amen. Well, Bill, I love that you've got that business background, right? So this is so helpful when you're coaching parishes, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But then you've got that background working in the diocese, which really helps parishes. And I can tell you just from being coached by Bill, that really helps to have that diocesan knowledge where a lot of us don't have that working day to day in the parish. You give that great perspective. And now you get to put all of that together and lead our team at Rebuilt, which is so exciting.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. And I do believe that one of those things that God formed in me was the opportunity to understand not only how church life works, but also how diocesan life works, because they're interconnected. And that structure of the church is a very strong and powerful structure that if we use it properly and navigate it properly with our parishes, we can create even more fruit than we realize because of our opportunity to see things through the lens, not only of the local parish, but as the structure of the church is there to support that as well. So we see ourselves two ways, not only as coaches and accompaniers of the pastors and their parishes, but also as an extension of the work that the diocese do. So we're building up that area as well and creating those relationships. We almost become a bridge in some of those situations. And we also can help translate some of the language, if you will, which is fun. As you know, the church has a very unique language in a lot of ways, and it's certainly been very helpful for members of our team to be able to speak that language as it relates to structures and order and some of the things that we know. And frankly speaking, it really is built on the sacramental life of the church, and that's the real whole power of this the structure itself, but also how we activate it in parishes.
Amen. Okay, I think we need to pause a second and talk about something that your current journey, first of all, when it comes to faith, you are one of the most prayerful and faithful people that I know. And I'm not just saying that, it's very true. But can you also talk about what program you're currently in your own personal faith and leadership journey?
So it's funny. I when I left the Archdiocese as CFO, I worked for Dynamic Catholic as a parish consultant in their Dynamic Parish program, which actually got shut down during COVID, unfortunately. But they continued their great work, and we love the work that they do at Dynamic Catholic. But I was invited to come back to Baltimore, and invited by Archbishop Laurie and Bishop Parker to write a white paper on evangelization that became the Institute for Evangelization that exists now. I actually needed to get a job, so I worked in a family office for a little while, went back to my old hustle, if you will. But God kept poking at me, and one of those nudges he gave me was to kind of answer a call that I was reluctant to respond to over a couple of years here, and that was to get into formation for the diaconate. So I am studying in the Archdiocese of Baltimore to be a deacon. I'm a deacon candidate. I'm 3 years into a 5-year program, finishing that. And then along the way, I realized I'm a finance guy. And I like to joke with our pastors that there are only 2 finance guys in Jesus's life. And that's Judas held the common purse for the apostles, and Matthew was a tax collector. So I knew where I stand in that part of it. But I also knew that I needed to continue to work on some theological aspects of my background and understand more. And I began a journey 2 years ago to get my master's in theology in Notre Dame and their church life program, which has been a phenomenal experience. And spoiler alert, next Monday, I have to present my capstone for my completion of that program. So hopefully with good completion here, I'll have my master's in theology on top of my MBA and probably be the most dangerous man in the church. So.
Okay, well, first of all, I did not know that your white paper is what helped to develop this whole department of evangelization. We just had them on the podcast last month or the month before. I did not know that your white paper started all of that. That's incredible.
So the Institute for Evangelization was a kind of a project that Bishop Parker and Archbishop Laurie invited me to do, really an evaluation of the evangelization department. And for me, Archbishop Laurie used to joke with me when I was the CFO that he had the only evangelical CFO in the entire country. As it related to dioceses and archdioceses. And I know a lot of my peers, and I know that's not true because they're very much evangelists as well. But growing deeper in our faith by exploring the way the church presents itself, a lot of that work in developing the Institute for Evangelization was built on my experiences at Nativity, the book Rebuilt, my work out at Dynamic Catholic as a parish consultant, and really understanding more and more not only what it looks like to sit in a senior chair at a diocese, but also live the life of being in a parish. And it's very similar to the way we work here at Rebuild in our coaching model. The foundational element was the story of the road to Emmaus, and that the two walking along the road, encountering Christ, and then journeying with Christ to learn the story, and then at the end going out and preach the story. And that's really the way we do our coaching at Rebuilt. That's the way they do the work as we collaborate with the team in the Institute for Evangelization in the Archdiocese of Baltimore and evangelization departments in other dioceses. We've learned very, very well that this journey is one we do together. And then when we journey together 2 by 2, Jesus joins this journey every time. And we just have to be aware of him. And as we know in that great story from the gospel, from the Acts of the Apostles, the reality of it is sometimes we're not aware Jesus is with us because we're not recognizing that he's there. Well, the more we recognize that he's there, the more we can activate that in our lives.
Definitely. Now, Bill, you get to talk with pastors and parish leaders both through coaching and through partner development. So what are you hearing most often about some of the challenges that they're facing in parish life right now?
A lot of the things we're learning is that the pressures and challenges of the culture are certainly overwhelming, but the foundational elements of a parish are still very, very strong. And what we see as the opportunity is that getting parishes to first and foremost understand the vision that God has for their community and how we cast that vision out into the community to activate people in the discipleship path of their life, right? The reality of it is, one thing we learn is that a lot of times parishes can feel insulated and almost turn in on themselves, and have a vision that looks inwardly to the things that we kind of do every day, as opposed to actively responding to the call to go out. I mean, at the end of Mass, we're sent on mission. The reality of it is we want to make sure that people understand what that means by the way we cast the message, the way the experience is in the parish, and that people recognize the call that they have in their lives from God to be able to be active in that parish and do the work that a lot of times we will default and say, well, that's Father's job. That whole evangelization thing, Father's supposed to do that. Good luck with that, Father. Right. The reality of it is, it's all of our work, and God is inviting us into that work, and he's inviting us into that work alongside of our pastors and their teams to make this more fruitful in those communities. You know this from the work we did together at St. Mary's in Glens Falls. Those guys continue to be on fire. Continue to recognize that it's not just what we do on our campus every day, and especially on the weekends. It's how we go out and encounter our neighbors in our communities to reveal the path to Christ to them in a powerful way, not only by the actions of our lives, but by the ability to tell the story of the gospel and tell the story of the experience they can have with the relationship with Christ.
Amen. Bill, I started laughing there because something that you hammered home during our time coaching together was, all right, outside of the four walls, Melissa. So St. Mary's isn't just in Glens Falls. St. Mary's is Glens Falls. What are your big town events? What can you do to get out there? How can you get people seeing that this is the church outside of the four walls? How can you welcome? And one of the things that you did, I called this out at our team retreat a couple of weeks ago. I said, Bill didn't just challenge for us to go after the Catholics. Bill challenged me, look at the demographics. Oh, okay, only 13% of your community identifies as Catholic. What are you going to do? That's a huge mission field. And so you helped us put together a plan to get out there at our big events, and what a difference it's made.
Yeah, and the stories and you and I talked about this a lot in our weekly sessions, is that St. Mary's is not in Glens Falls, it is Glens Falls. Nativity is not in Timonium, it is Timonium. And when you recognize the community you're supposed to serve, you also recognize one of the fun things I tell pastors when we start with them is God gave us a very specific amount of disciples to make. All of them, right? Not just the Catholic ones, not just the most devout Catholic ones, not even just the fallen away Catholic ones, but all. And that's part and parcel to understanding and recognizing all the people in our community. It also helps you recognize who's there to be called to Christ, who's there to be served in your community, the best way for us to serve them, and then how to activate our communities to be more intentional about the way that we do that. And when you start to orient yourself to that, we recognize that in the scriptures, after the resurrection and the apostles were out in the world, there's parts in there where it was like people saw a community they wanted to be part of. It wasn't just what they were preaching. They saw people taking care of each other, and they saw people really loving one each other. And if we project that love out into our communities, it's amazing how much more powerful they're like, show them what we do. And when you show them what we do, they'll listen more to what we say. And when they see that it matches up, it's amazing how powerful that is in people's lives, because Melissa, as you talked about, and you and I both know, the reality of it is, the story gets a little diluted out there in the world. There's a lot of noise. C.S. Lewis was very right. The noise in the world is going to overwhelm a lot of things. But it's amazing when the community comes together and we step out into the larger community and we proclaim the gospel, not only with the words that we speak, but the actions and the encounter that we have with people, how much more powerful it is. And in a lot of ways, the work that we're charged with at Rebuilt is built to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Is to show what it means in parish life. One of the great things I like to tell pastors that I love about the way we view it at Nativity, we have, we always say to serve in mission or ministry. Well, at Nativity, we tell, and our partner parishes, we tell them, mission is everything where we leave the campus, and ministry is everything we do on the campus, right? Each one prepares you differently for the work that God is calling you into, but both levels of work are powerful, and they help you engage people in a unique way.
Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one conversation, or one weekend for a parish to begin moving in a new direction. That's why Rebuilt Parish has launched our Rebuilt Speakers Network. Whether it's a parish mission, a diocesan event, or a strategic offsite with your staff, our team helps Catholic leaders step back, focus on what matters most, and leave with a vision for what is possible. And beginning this fall, Tom Corcoran will be traveling to parishes to speak about our latest book, Jesus, the Rich Young Man, and the Meaning of Life. This presentation will help your whole parish grow deeper in their relationship with Jesus in a culture filled with distractions. If you'd like to bring a Rebuilt speaker to your parish or diocese, email me, Colleen@rebuiltparish.com, to learn more and to book your speaker today. Bill, when I think about just the ways that we help coach parishes, and I feel like our mission has stayed the same, but we've just really learned so much about what's going on in the world and what's going on in parish life. One thing I think that sets us apart is, number one, we have Nativity as the home parish of Rebuilt, and who is also facing some of the same challenges that other parishes are facing, right? Like, so for example, kids and travel sports. We know that travel sports are a big thing. So one of the things that Rebuilt coaches to is, okay, where are your kids? Where are the families? What can we do to not just say, oh, sorry, travel sports families, church, you can't come to Mass. Your kids can't be in our programs. But I appreciate how Rebuilt recognizes that, all right, we have to meet the people where they are. And you coach parishes to do that.
That's exactly right, Melissa. And a lot of that's about, back to that same theme you mentioned earlier about understanding the community you're serving in. So many parishes will tell us that, our target audience is how do we get young people and young families and things like that. And if you remember some of the stuff we did early on in activating the school there at St. Mary's, we talked a lot about not just the school, but how do we activate young people and young families? Well, you kind of have to adapt some of the work that you're doing. That doesn't change the foundational elements of what we teach. It doesn't change the foundational elements of how we worship, but it does adapt to how we can reach those folks in a more powerful way. And we've seen so much creativity in these parishes. As you said, we at Nativity, we never think we're done. I always tell people the timeline for our coaching process is the same as God's. It's eternal.
Right, forever and ever.
And I say that facetiously, but the reality of it is we know that we're always working on this. God's always introducing new people to us that he's expecting us to bring to him. And the more we can be attentive to having thoughtful conversations, if we really, really, really want to reach these communities in a powerful way, what should we be doing differently, right? And what you find is that parishes get very creative. I like to tell pastors, one of the first things I want to do after you understand the vision God has for your community is to give your team permission to innovate, to think about things that reach the people we know we want to meet. Right. And Melissa, this exercise that I do with parishes, and we do this as a team too, is I ask people to demystify the concept of evangelization. And this is the exercise is close your eyes and think really hard, pray really hard about who God is putting on your heart to bring back to him. Not just to bring back to Mass, which is important, but to bring back to him. And when you open your eyes, you realize that person is probably a son or a daughter, a brother or a sister, a college roommate, somebody in your life right now. So for a lot of us, it is young people. It is young families, right? And we're struggle with how do we reach them? Well, part of it's us sitting down and saying, let's have a good conversation about what that might mean. And maybe the structure of, for example, our Mass schedule or our class schedules can be adapted in such a way that we reach them. Because one thing we know is that us just digging in our heels and saying, well, if they're not going to come, too bad. Well, that's not what God said.
Right.
He expects us to meet them where they are and to lead them where God is calling them to be. And that includes taking a good hard look about how you reach them. Now, that's going to be unique in every parish. And that's why you have to be creative about this. But at Nativity, we're constantly exploring these things and studying these things. And we have the added benefit, Melissa, as you know, now 42 partner parishes and almost 80 overall that we've worked with in coaching over the last 5 years that really are out there doing exactly that, thinking about the ways to reach their communities in new and exciting ways so that they can make disciples in those communities specific to the call that God has for them in that local parish.
100%. Can we talk about this for a second? Because this is so exciting. 5 years ago, when parish coaching started, we were one of 5 or 6 parishes in coaching, period. And now we're coaching over 40 parishes at one time, which is just what a huge blessing. We've coached almost 80. Bill, what excites you the most about that kind of growth?
Well, first and foremost, I'm grateful for the opportunity that pastors give us to come alongside of them, because we like to say the first part of everything we do is accompanying the pastor and his team, to kind of get settled in and think about what God is calling them to do in their local community. So it always excites me to step into the parish community and see what the possibilities are and have those conversations. So that's always exciting. The second thing is, as we activate the 4 anchors that we have in our ministry, and anybody that's watched this podcast before knows those 4 anchors, the leadership, the weekend experience, the growing deeper and growing wider. The reality of it is being able to adapt what we do to the local parish so that we bring the most out of them is the most exciting thing. I was in half a dozen parishes last week up in the Northeast, meeting with various different people. And the coolest part about it is, frankly, all of them are different. The joke we used to use when I was in the archdiocese was, what's good for one parish is good for one parish, right? Now, we know the foundational elements, and especially the sacramental and sacramental life elements, not just the rites, but the sacramental life, are very common in terms of where we start a lot of the conversation. But then as we think about the broader audience and reaching people, it's exciting to think, you start with Father, start with his team, then you start to see the level of commitment that group has to the community that they're in. And then you start to realize that, there's a lot of people that want to join this journey in that local church. And we like to say, we all know that in every organization, churches are not unique, but every organization I've ever worked in, this was true when I was a branch manager in San Francisco, as is now. In every community, there's a vocal minority, and they can be loud. They can be very constructive and helpful, but they also can kind of draw you down a little bit. And we want to wade through that. We're trying to help you activate the silent majority that actually has a call from God to get involved and haven't figured out what that is. And I'll tell you, when you activate the silent majority, you can't stop it. Like you see the Holy Spirit moving. That's how you see the Holy Spirit move, when all of a sudden ministers come out of the woodwork saying, Father, how can I help you? Yes. What would be great? How can I be participating in this?
Bill, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm thinking back to my early days, and we have lived a lot of life together in the church, right? Like it can be rough. That minority that is vocal, they can be hard on the parish leaders trying to implement change. They can say mean and hurtful things. They can try and undermine things. I mean, we have seen it all, and not just in my parish, we've seen it in other parishes as well. But I would say, to encourage those parish leaders who are thinking about starting this journey, is that think more about that silent majority and watch what happens as they start to activate. It has been the most beautiful thing watching these people who were not involved, who were just sitting in the pews, now who have become active, who are using their spiritual gifts, who are using the experiences that God has shaped them with to serve in mission and ministry. And boy, is it beautiful to watch and encouraging after going through some of the hard stuff in the beginning.
And Melissa, you know this too, to extend that analogy, we have this new book coming out, Jesus, the Rich Young Ruler and the Reading of and the Meaning of Life. It's going to be a great book, but Jesus taught us how to encounter people, right? Jesus looked at him and loved him.
Yes.
Right. If we look at that, that loud majority, Jesus, Pastor, look at them and love them.
Yes.
But also be clear that, God has a specific call for you in this life, that you're inviting them in too. I'm not excluding you. I'm inviting you into this journey. And in this journey, we're going to activate people that maybe never were involved before. And I need you to look at them and love them.
Yes.
And I need you to encounter them and bring them along. And as we do that, we recognize that God will reveal to us all the work that he has for us in the life of the church that we actually maybe never recognized before. Right. And that may involve enhancing things we're already doing. It may be, setting things aside that might need to go in the parking lot for a little while, or maybe we stop doing them altogether. But the reality of it is, when you open your heart to that idea of, if you will, sacramental innovation, like think about how differently the world would look in a parish life if we had that orientation. And then we activated this army of, ministers that Jesus has put before us to say, let's go. This is the opportunity we have. And we want to speak deeper into your life. That helps people grow in their own faith, but then it helps them learn how to share their faith with others.
Definitely. Well, Bill, I'm so glad you brought up the new book that's coming out, because I think it plays into discipleship in general. So giving as an act of worship, teaching us how Jesus loved him. Let's talk a little bit about that generosity and that giving as an act of worship, not out of financial need. So why is that shift so important in parish renewal?
Yeah, our team, Ed and Tom and others who are active in the church money conversation, to highlight that book from a number of years ago, they like to remind us that we're not trying to raise money; we're actually trying to raise givers. And by extension, that translation is we're trying to raise disciples. What is giving as a level of your and measure of your discipleship path? We have a great supporter of Rebuilt Nativity who told me one time, we talk about the paths to discipleship, the steps, and the T in steps is the tithe, right? Tithe or give. And he jokes with me sometimes. He goes, my giving habit was always just kind of like reach in my pocket, tough weekend for Father this weekend. Next weekend, good weekend for Father. Like he never had a plan,
right.
And then he had a pretty successful business that did very well. And he realized God was calling him into something different when it came to not only his finances, but as we talk about his time, talent, and his treasure, right? Because if you activate your treasure in a different way, I guarantee you're going to activate your time and talent in a different way. And it intermingles, right? Same thing with your time, same thing with your talent. So the tithing piece, the giving piece for us is not just, how much money can we raise or, gosh, we need this new thing or whatever it is, new program, new boiler, new whatever facility project we have to work on. But, how is God speaking into me in my life right now to have a different relationship with my money? As we know, Jesus talks about money almost more than anything else he talks about in the scriptures. And there's an opportunity to invite people in those moments to reflect on what God is saying to you about your resources. And everybody thinks that, somebody else has more than me or whatever it is. That's not the conversation. The conversation is what's God inviting you to do with the gifts he's given you. And it's not a matter of whether you have more or I have more or Elon Musk has more than all of us, right? The reality of it is focus on what God's doing in your family and what God's doing in you personally as you grow in faith and you're exploring not only the scripture, but the experience in the parish in a powerful way to understand what the fruit of that is. And I would recall for you when we did our $18 million vision campaign to build our new church at Nativity, one of my favorite stories from that campaign was when Father stood before us. I think Tom echoed this in one of the other messages, but the message he gave us was God has put the name of somebody who is not here on a pew in the new church. And he wants you to reflect on how you're going to invest in that person. So when you think about money, you think less about dollars and cents, and you start to realize the people that are involved and impacted by the resources that we have, not only those we give to or parishes we give to, but how we and our families grow in our faith and grow in our journey relative to that. So it's a powerful way to look at it. And I say that humbly through the lens of an old CFO who did a lot of this stuff and knows how this works in parishes. And it's not a matter of one parish being wealthier than another parish. It's more about recognizing, again, back to that theme, what's in our community, How are they being lifted up? What are they being invited to participate in? And what does that look like? And how are we activating it?
For sure. Bill, I think something that is so special that people might not realize is that Rebuilt is mostly donor funded. So when a parish comes to us for coaching, they pay a small fee. And when I say small, it is small compared to the actual cost of coaching, which is then subsidized by some of our donors. So how do you see that generosity as an act of discipleship, both for the donor and for the parishes that we serve?
So a couple of different things that drive our behavior when it comes to that is, number one, we don't want the pricing of coaching to be a barrier to a parish that really wants to transform things in their community, right? So we tried to make it as, if you will, affordable and impactful as we can, while still knowing that, if you have an investment in the game, it makes you a little more attentive to the work that you're doing. So there's a little measure of that in there as well. What we've found is that there are a lot of donors that have on their heart this parish transformation as well. And they're willing to make that investment to make up, if you will, the gap between what it costs to coach somebody and have great teams and great resources and great content and all the things that we try to create and develop to impact these parishes that they can activate in their own parishes. But donors have been incredibly generous for us, continue to be. I was with a potential donor yesterday that was actually brand new for us. And he's a local Baltimore businessman who didn't really understand. He knew Nativity, but he didn't really understand Rebuilt. And he was intrigued by this whole idea of how he could possibly come alongside some of our parishes and help out in that way, because he sees the same things we do. Look, it's not a secret. The Catholic parish has gone through a lot of change. There's a lot of things happening in the Catholic Church that have been challenging for the church. But I will tell you, people are aware that something special is going on right now. And they want to come alongside us to invest in that special, right? That ability to step into the life of a parish and figure out how we re-energize them and actually capture this opportunity the Holy Spirit has put before us to grow out of some of the challenges we've had, and to activate the vision God has for our communities. And let's be clear, sometimes we get caught up in the fact that these challenges today are different than any challenges ever. Well, this church is 2026 years old so far, right? And it's gone through a lot. And if you don't believe me, go back and read the Gospels.
Right.
Go back and read the challenges. If you want to understand how parish renewal works, take the next month and read the Acts of the Apostles, and you'll understand how challenging it is to build and grow a church, or to rebuild and regrow a church. The task is the same in a lot of ways, but requires more of us or different things from us. And our donors are very excited about the opportunity to invest in that as it relates to how we're activating the local parish community.
What happens when parish leaders stop standing still and start taking bold steps forward? Well, come find out and join us at the 2027 Rebuilt Conference. Pastors, parish staff, and ministry leaders from around the country will be gathering and joining together at Church of the Nativity in Timonium, Maryland, to experience what it looks like when a parish is fully alive and aligned on mission. The Rebuilt Conference is for parish leaders, by parish leaders. By joining, you'll hear practical strategies and real stories of parish renewal. You'll get to connect with leaders facing the same challenges you are, and leave feeling encouraged, equipped, and ready to move forward with clarity and confidence. So join us May 3rd and 4th, 2027 for 2 full days focused on parish renewal, discipleship, and building a thriving Catholic parish. Join the waitlist today at rebuiltconference.com to receive conference updates, speaker announcements, and early bird pricing before tickets open publicly. We can't wait to see you in May.
Now, when a local parish comes into our coaching, what type of transformation are we hoping to see for them? Not just in their systems or in their leadership, but in discipleship. What do we go into the relationship hoping for them?
There are so many elements to that, Melissa. I think foundationally, first and foremost, I want to reiterate the accompaniment piece. It's amazing the number of parish pastors that will say, after all that we've been through, I finally don't feel alone anymore, to quote one of our pastors. And what that means is not that they don't have plenty of people around them in the parish, but they now have a coach or cheerleader or coaching team that's stepping into their world, understanding specifically what's in front of them right now, helping them prioritize those challenges, and then figuring out how we build the leadership teams to address whatever it is they're trying to accomplish in that parish. And we speak a lot about the four anchors. We speak about the flywheels. We speak about the if you will, I'll call them the technicalities or the mechanics of coaching and the great experience that we want to create. But the reality of it is that path is unique to the parish, unique to the pastor, and unique to the team that he's on. And what we are hoping to do is to step in and activate the vision God has for that parish, start to move it in a direction that includes inviting new people into it, which is the whole concept of discipleship, right? Of figuring out how people are being called to be disciples in their local communities and getting them involved. And when you see that momentum, when you see people get excited about everything about church life in a new way, it's amazing how much everything gets better. Everything.
I love that you said momentum. I love that you said momentum.
Your Advent and Christmas experience is better. Your Lent and your Easter experience is better. You're oriented to people differently. You're inviting new people into the work. And to be blunt, God's pushing people into your work. Like, who are all these people that are showing up? And it's fun when Father sits back and says, "Gosh, I never really had the opportunity to do this in this way." Mm-hmm. One of the first questions I like to talk to pastors about is like, what's your favorite thing about being a priest? In one of my parishes that I'm coaching, the pastor said, "I love doing funerals." And I'm like, "Tell me more about that." And he's like, I said, "Well, he said, the reality of it is the encounter with the family before and along the journey, the mass itself, the burial service, the post reception, all that stuff are opportunities for pastoral encounter that are unique to that sacramental experience, the sacramental life." And I said to him, "Well, then how do we activate that differently in your team and in your parish to make that experience world-class?" And when they start thinking about that, they think, wow, this is why I became a priest, to activate this sacramental life, not only in the way I execute the rites of the sacraments, but the way I activate the life of the sacraments in my parish in a different way to bring people to this very unique opportunity that candidly is unique to Catholic parishes in the way we do the sacraments and the way we live the sacramental life, that they all of a sudden get excited about. So all those elements come together to start to see a different parish than the one you're looking out to maybe before we step into coaching.
Well, and Bill, I think that's a great point, because when Father is freed up to really focus on those parts of being a priest that he's most passionate about, and he will be more freed up because he's building this team around him of people that are going to help him do the day-to-day and some of the leadership that he probably didn't have time to do, he can now just get more joy out of all of it because he's not feeling as stretched thin and alone on this whole priestly journey.
Yeah, and building that team, Melissa, is so important. It's amazing how when Father starts to evaluate what he needs in those roles, and every parish is different. Some people, we don't have the staff to do this, we don't have this or that. I guarantee you, we've seen this in every parish. There are volunteers, we call them ministers, but there are volunteers in every parish who can step in and help out with whatever it is you're trying to do in your parish. And the whatever it is not just anything. It's specific to, back to that activation of the vision you had for your parish, right? And when you start to realize that, I like to tell pastors that there are things that you're the director of the work, and there are things that you're the doer of the work. The doer of the work part for you is almost going to be predominantly sacramental. Yeah. Now I get it. Canon law says you're responsible for the finances and you're responsible for all this great stuff. The reality of it is, if you have really trustworthy, talented people around you, you are more directing that work than doing that work. Mm-hmm. And that's really important for the life of the pastor and for how he builds out his team in a powerful way, and is able to accomplish the work, that it isn't just on him. I had a pastor I worked with in California. I was at his Saturday morning mass with Mary, and I came out and said, "How's your day looking?" And he goes, I had, obviously had daily mass this morning. I've got 3 weddings and a funeral to do the rest of the weekend. And he goes, and oh, by the way, we had a water leak in our daily chapel. And he goes, I had to mop out this morning trying to clean up the water. I'm like, Father, where's your maintenance guy today?
Right.
Oh, he doesn't work on the weekends. I was like, dude, he's on call to you.
Right.
I said, I appreciate the fact that you can do the functioning end of a mop. But the reality of it is, this is what we're trying to get you to do, is to build out teams of people that recognize there's always going to be things that come up along the way, and it can't always be that Father does them.
Definitely.
Right? Father has to have confidence that he's got a team that's saying, no, Father, we got you on this.
Yeah.
At Nativity and things like that happen. We have the ops team, which is mostly almost all ministers, right? That they're the ones that are pushing them up and showing up to help with those things, along with the great staff that they have there as well. But the ministers are an extension of that. And it always doesn't just like, well, Father knows where the mop is, so he's just going to do it,
Right. No, there's a whole team of people who are willing and want to serve. And
Right.
There's no ministry that's not important. All of them are important, especially, weekends, having the ops team there is so important so that they can handle all of those things so that Father can focus on the sacraments.
Yeah. As you know, parish life is very complex, and there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And yes, I know there are priests out there that'll be like, every once in a while, I don't mind pushing a mob. Maybe I can hide in this corner, clean up this mess, which this priest that I am really good friends with, he would say, you know what? I kind of like the heavy lifting sometimes. It just gets me out of my routine. I said, yeah, Father, but we got to do better than that.
Definitely. Now, Bill, something you had said just a bit ago was momentum, and I want to talk about that. We saw so much momentum in parishes after they came to our 2025 conference, and we're still seeing that momentum a year after the conference. So we've got one coming up next year. Why is the conference such an opportunity for our pastors, their staff, and their teams, including ministers?
Yeah. So the most important thing about that is our community coming together overall. So being able to welcome our partner parishes to our campus, but also all the new and exciting people that are exploring and seeking what God is doing in their parishes to come together into a community of parishes and dioceses and seminaries to share information, to talk about the great topics that are top of mind right now in church life, to engage people that are, on one hand, subject matter experts, but as you know, Melissa, and our team, all the subject matter experts are also lifelong learners of this. So they're trying to not only impart information that we want to share from what we've learned, we want to invite those comments that introduce new things to us, that challenge the way we do things so that we continue to improve on those. So this community that comes together next May 2nd to the 4th on campus at Nativity in Timonium, Maryland, we invite everybody to come, all nations. We want them all, right? But it's amazing, and the excitement, the energy. I ran into Bishop Parker on the promenade during the conference last year. And he had just gotten on campus for his part in the great experience. And I said, it's so great to hear you. He said, this is my happy place. Seeing parishes excited and people talking about church life in an exciting and new way he said, it just gets me so energized for all the other things that I have to do as vicar general. He goes, I get just so energized coming here, and it helps me step back into the day-to-day work in a much more enthusiastic and God-filled way. So that experience of the conference is one that over the years, in every conference we've ever done, the fruit of it is certainly the number of parishes. We're up to about 22 that have joined us in coaching since last year. Wow. New parishes, which is phenomenal. But more importantly, we're talking to a lot of new dioceses and a lot of parishes. I like to tease and say they're DIYers. They're doing it themselves, which is great. And we support them as well. We love them. We pray for them. We're actually even helping them out here and there as we can. And every once in a while, they'll join us in coaching. But there are a lot of folks that are out there trying new things in their parishes. Well, the conference is a great place to come and explore those things, and then to encounter other people that are doing the same thing. And that emphasizes a big part of our coaching experience as well, which is the cohort, right? You're part of something bigger. I don't know if you remember this, Melissa, but we're one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church.
Oh, we say that
Those four marks are really
Sunday,
important.
right?
I think you heard that somewhere, maybe. I didn't make that up. But being one church, one way to feel like one church is to encounter our conference and be part of all these parishes that come from all over the country, frankly, all over the world, to experiencing something different. And I'll finish that. I have a call yesterday morning with a pastor in Austria who's exploring, things he can do differently in his parish. And now he's excited to come to the conference because he'll be able to see it in full action, right? Not only the 800 people that are going to come from around the world, but as you know, Melissa, when we throw out the invitation to our ministers at Nativity, we'll have over 200 ministers from our parish that will volunteer their time and take a day off from work or two to engage in this experience. And that's one of the big things. We're like, how do you get these people to do this? This is what we coach, to activate the people in your church to just be like excited about this. So
they are. I think that's one of the fun things too, is seeing, well, first of all, a few things. So one was Bishop Parker, how he just, even afterwards, hung around and talked to anybody who wanted to talk to him, which I thought was just so gracious and kind of him. Number two, when you talk about parish leaders from all over the world coming, I think one of the most beautiful parts of the conference was seeing, gosh, how many priests did we have up on the altar for the consecration? Over 50. I mean, there was literally standing room only. I was worried a couple might fall off the side. It was packed up there. But then also this opportunity for people to come together and to see that these ministers really want to be there. I mean, you're not kidding when I was working in the tent, like handing out the bags as people were checking in, and some of them were like, yeah, I took the next 2 days off of work so that I could be here for this. And I just remembered thinking, I see this ministry, but wow, you believe in this so much and you want to help so much and serve and see these parishes, these parish leaders in real life, that you took 2 days off of work for that. That just shows you just how incredible of disciples these people are.
And Melissa, that's a great highlight, because there were 50 or so priests on the altar, and then there were another 100 of them in the congregation, if you will, who took the opportunity to worship with their teams, and didn't go on the altar, which is fine. Different guys have different motivations in that regard, which we invite as well. But I think what they all have in common is they see their brother priests and their brother priest teams in a different way, as a way of something that can lift them up as well, and come alongside. It's a number of things we're working on relative to how we even do a better job with activating some of those cohorts for these pastors in a meaningful way, for them to continue these conversations in a powerful way that happen in a place like the conference. And it's funny to see a guy from California encounter a guy from Boston and then have an amazing conversation about the similarities of the things they're trying to accomplish in their parishes, and yet the differences in the communities they're trying to serve. But the common ground is the same, right? And the unity is clear. Maybe how we put it in action in a different parish might be a little bit different, but the reality of it is they see goodness in the fact that they are in the vineyard, toiling together in a powerful way. And I also think that the teams get energy out of seeing that as well. When you're if you're a parish life director, or you're a head of evangelization for your parish or whatever, and you encounter somebody else in that role at some other parish, it's a new experience for you as well. Sure. And then you also get to encounter all the folks at Nativity that do that work and are just so eager. And we're so blessed that our staff at Nativity, they're fully engaged in the work we do at Rebuilt, despite the fact that we are separate entities. I like to joke that Nativity is our lab. That's where we have, we're constantly trying all these new things. And I don't know if Tom or Father White's the mad scientist, but we've got a lot of good stuff going on in there. Maybe it's Brandon. Brandon's the mad scientist. We'll put him in that category. But they are so eager to support and be part of this parish community that comes together in the conference in a powerful way, actually to lift everybody up in a unique and godlike way.
For sure. Now, Bill, as we wrap things up and as you're looking ahead, what are you praying for when it comes to the future of Rebuilt and the parishes that we're hoping to serve?
I start with prayer for our pastors because there's a lot on them. We know that, and pray for them first. But I quickly get to their teams and everybody having an open heart for what God is telling and inviting them into in their work. Those are the most powerful things that I pray for. And I like to go into my adoration experience and pray for all these folks that are active in our work. I also pray for all the folks that are doing this work alongside of us, right? I mean, I think that we're fortunate to have a great team of staff members at Rebuilt, staff at Nativity, but we have an army of ministers that are constantly coming forward. And I think it's important for all of us not only to pray for them, but pray for those that God's challenging to take the next step and this be their next step. Right? We're always looking for new coaches. We're always looking for new teammates. We're always looking for folks that can, take us up a level in the content that we provide, and the experiences that we have. So I pray for those folks that are coming into this work to join us in this work, in a powerful way. And then the folks that actually have to be on the ground and do the work in their local communities.
Definitely. Well, friends, as you're listening, I want you to know when Bill says he's praying for these things, he's actually praying for them. But Bill, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to pour into this parish community today and for taking the time to share some of the new and exciting things happening at Rebuilt.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Melissa. I appreciate being here. A little nod to that prayer thing. This is my nod to Father John Ricardo in Acts 29. This is my folder for my trailer blueprints. When I go into adoration, I take my work and I open it up and say, God, what are you asking me to do here?
Yes.
So that's a powerful thing. So prayer is a foundational element of our team, not just me personally, but all of us as a team and how we do our work. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today and be on the podcast, and eager to encounter anyone that wants to follow up with me directly. Bill at rebuiltparish.com. You can put that in the show notes for sure. And if you want to take the conversation further or engage the conversation, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you, Bill. Well, we'll make sure to have your email address in the show notes so that people can reach out to you directly. Thank you again for being here. And to our listeners, thank you. We'll see you next time.
God bless you.